All right, so the 2024 NBA draft is about 2 days away, which kind of leaves us one last chance to get in like a final mock draft. Um, so that's what we're doing. We're just going to go through each of the picks in the first round only and do a mock draft. This is going to be more of a draft where I kind of do what I would do at each pick, just based on each team's needs, kind of how I view each prospect, and it's going to be less about um, predicting what's going to actually happen. I will talk about, um, you know, a little bit about what I think each team might do at each spot, but it's mostly going to go what kind of I think is the right pick. So I'm not going to waste too much more time. I think we can just kind of get right into it. I've got Fanspo pulled up here, and um, on the board at 1, we've got the Atlanta Hawks. So right now, the reporting would indicate that the decision is between Zachary Risacher and Donovan Clingan. They have not been able to get Alex Sarr in for a workout or even really meet with him over the phone. Like it's been it's been more difficult, I think, as they had imagined. I think for a long time, people had just kind of penciled in Sarr at number 1. But you know, it's looking like he's going to be at 2 to the Wizards. But kind of despite that, I still think that Alex Sarr is the pick for Atlanta. Um, if I'm Landry Fields, I'm just going to take the player who I think is the best available. That is, if I don't trade it. But again, we aren't going to be doing trades, so I think you go with Alex Sarr here. I just think that he is the highest upside player in this draft. This archetype of stretch big who can play a lot of different styles on defense, guard the perimeter, can switch, can hedge, is just mobile, can just make up ground. That archetype of player is more valuable than ever in the current NBA, and has shown flashes of creation and shooting and just a lot of good things on offense as well. Isn't afraid to put the ball on the floor. Um, I think for a comparison for this guy, I would kind of think like he's got some Evan Mobley, Nick Claxton. He has some shades of Bam. It sounds a little bit crazy, but I think he kind of does play like Bam a little bit on both sides. So Alex Sarr, I think that's the right pick for Atlanta if I were drafting for them. Now, number 2, we've got the Washington Wizards. I think Sarr going to them at 2 is the dream scenario, and in real life, that's the most likely scenario that we know of right now. But in this exercise, he is off the board at 2, so we do have to kind of go with something else. I do still think that drafting a big is the right move for them, and drafting a guy who can just help their defense in any way, because their defense was really really bad last year, and this draft isn't that great anyway. Like no matter who you're drafting right now, you aren't really going to draft your franchise cornerstone. Like Risacher isn't doing that for you. Matas, I don't think is doing that for you. Like these other guys, like Iran, I don't think is doing that for you. I do think Donovan Clingan is going to be someone who is going to help that defense and really help their center rotation, because if you look at their big man rotation right now, we can see down here Marvin Bagley, Rashawn Holmes, Ian Mahimi. I mean, they aren't. He's not actually on the team. I think they're just paying him still. But Marvin Bagley and Rashawn Holmes are their bigs right now. Obviously, that's problematic. I think that Donovan Clingan, just take him. Take him now. You're going to be bad next year anyway. Hopefully, you guys can you know get another high lottery pick and then draft the real like franchise cornerstone next year, which is supposed to be a more talented draft at the top. So I feel like Clingan, when people do mock Sarr going 1, I usually don't see people take Clingan at 2, but I think that's the right choice if I were making the decisions over in DC. So 3, we have the Rockets now. And the Rockets are a tough team to draft for because like they have a lot of guys who need to play for them. Um like nobody they draft at 3 is guaranteed to be in the rotation, like, to begin next season. Like, I mean, like, they have a lot of young players still who need time to develop and kind of show their skill sets. They have some vets they brought in last summer who are gonna need to play. Um, it's just a little bit tough for them. And this is a team that I think could very well trade this pick. Like, this pick, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rockets ended up picking on draft night, but I think it's one of those things where it's like I'm kind of expecting it's my expectation that this pick gets traded. Um so that's that. But for the sake of the exercise, we are going to pick for them. I just think it's once you start like mocking in your own fake trades, it just strays a little bit too far into the direction of being like really hypothetical. And I just think that kind of defeats the purpose, in my opinion, of doing this kind of mock. So making the pick for Rockets at 3, I think Reed Shepherd is the right play here. This is a guy who's got a super high floor as a player. Um, he's a freshman. He's 19 years old. He just kind of does. He does. He does what I do think they do still need, which is some shooting in the backcourt, especially. Um, we can continue to talk about their team. They have Fred VanVleet, who is kind of a wishy-washy shooter. Jalen Green is a streaky shooter. Amen Thompson is very, very far away from being a respectable shooter. I think Reed Shepherd provides them that, and also just kind of is a guy that can play right away for them. Like, they're a good team. They won 40 games last year. I think they're going to make another leap forward this year because you've got some teams in the West that I think are going to fall off a bit, like the Clippers, the Warriors, the Kings could fall off, the Lakers could slide. I do think there's an avenue for the Rockets to kind of jump up in there, and Reed Shepherd could help them do that. I think Reed Shepherd is a good defensive player too. I think he's not going to be that great in the NBA right away, just because he is a little bit small, but he fits what Ime Udoka likes to do, which is like have defensive focused teams. So if they are picking at 3, and this is the way the board kind of goes, take Reed Shepherd. I think a good comparison for him might be kind of like Austin Reeves a little bit on offense, but could do a little bit more than that in other areas, like Derek White light. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be Derek White, but he kind of does similar things. So I think that's a good pick for Houston at 3. Moving on to the Spurs. So the Spurs have 4 and 8 in this draft. I think they're one of the most interesting teams, probably the most interesting team in the whole draft. There's been some talk and some reporting about them maybe moving up into the kind of 1 or 2 area. They might be like, they could take Risa Shea if because in actuality, it's looking to be unlikely Risa Shea is there at 4. So if they really do want Risa Shea, they could trade up for him. I think them trading up for Sarr would be chaotic, and I think it would be pretty cool. I think that's a nasty duo if they wanted to trade up. But if they're picking up 4, I think they have some options. They have Risa Shea, they have Topic, Buzelis, Castle. I think the decision is between Risa Shea and Castle at this point. And I just think that I'm a little bit higher on Stephon Castle than I am Risa Shea. Castle, last year, I think kind of the story of last year was they didn't have a lot of guys that were good distributors and that could set the table well enough for that for those pieces on that team to really get going, especially Victor. I think it was a little bit overblown, but like they didn't have a lot of guys that could set other players up. And I think Stephon Castle isn't like the lead ball handler point guard right away, but is a really good secondary playmaker. I think they've already been rumored to be kind of maybe hunting for a bigger name guard this summer. Darius Garland is a name. DeJounte Murray is a name. Trae Young is a name. Like, I think if they wanted to get that kind of player, they could trade for that. But in this draft at pick 4, I think Stephon Castle is kind of the guy they want. Again, secondary playmaker, is a smart player. Defensively, he's strong. I mean, at UConn, that's kind of what you have to buy into, and he really bought into that. He's not there yet as a shooter. I do think that he can get there though. There are flashes of him shooting on the pull up, you know, going to his right side where it looks good. Yeah, I just think that Stephon Castle, if I was making like a big board, I think Stephon Castle would be like top 2. I'm just super high on the guy. I think if the Spurs can get him at 4, I think they'd feel really good about that. So moving on to Detroit, I think that I think the way this has gone so far sets up Detroit for the easy pick of Zachary Risacher at 5. Again, in real life, I don't think he'll be there. But if he is there, I do think that's the most ideal scenario for them. They badly need shooting. I think they could use some wing depth. And Risacher, he does that if nothing else. Like even if you're low on his defense, on his creation, I don't think they really need a lot more creation than they do just a guy who can make shots, who can shoot, who can just relieve some of the pressure off Cade Cunningham. And if he can put the ball on the floor and attack some of those closeouts and play at the rim a bit, then that's great. But right now, I have faith that he will help their team and is kind of the fit for them. If he's not there, I think Matas, you can kind of roll the dice on his shooting a little bit. If Reed Sheppard somehow slides, which depends on if Houston trades that pick or, maybe San Antonio just passes on him, I think Reed Sheppard is a guy that could really help at 5 for the Pistons. But I think Risacher, they would feel really good about Risacher at 5. So moving on, we have the Charlotte Hornets at 6. I saw something recently that they are likely to re-sign Miles Bridges. I think they could still go a wing. They could go guard. I mean, we can look at their depth chart a little bit here. Yeah, I think that shooting guard position, they could really use a guy to kind of fit in there. I am looking at Ron Holland for them at the moment as someone who can kind of play that 2. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Brandon Miller is more of a 2. Maybe you want to play LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Bridges, Grant Williams, Mark Williams. Like that could be a lineup for them for sure. And it's not like it's a requirement for this pick to start anyway. So I wouldn't be picking on who you think is going to start the soonest. But this pick is tough. This pick is certainly tough. I think right now I'm leaning more towards Ron Holland for them. And again, that's just because I think he just has a ton of upside and they're still in a rebuild for sure. Brandon Miller ended up being like absolutely the right pick at 2 for them last year. I think that again, they have LaMelo Ball. Like this team isn't that far away from making the play-in. They just need to be healthy. Mark Williams, that includes him too. He was hurt a lot of last year. I'm really high on him long term. I think that is the center. So that's why I don't think they should take Clingan if he falls down here. I think that they should go wing. And I just like Ron Holland. I mean, he has so much upside. It was only a year ago where he was considered kind of the best prospect in this draft. Taking him here at 6, I like a lot. I don't think you should go Matas. I think Ron is kind of fits what the team needs a bit more, and that's not really another shooter right away. Ron kind of does a bit of everything. He's athletic, definitely a project. People have compared him to Jaylen Brown a little bit. I think that's a guy that this team could really use. Let's go Ron Holland at 6. Next up, 7, we've got the Portland Trailblazers. So you might not really think of it this way, but they are a bit similar to the Rockets in the sense that they have a lot of guys who are going to need to play like next season. Let's kind of go down the list. We've got Malcolm Brogdon. If he's on the roster, he's going to play. Scoot Henderson. It was a rough first year. He did make some improvements in the second half of the year that I feel like people have not talked about a ton. I think obviously he's going to play. He went number 3 last year. They're still going to believe in him. Anthony Simons, I think he's a trade candidate, but if he's on the roster, he's going to play. Matisse Thybulle, I think he could play. Shaden Sharp, he could play. Banton is not a nobody, Rupert, Rupert, I don't know how to say it. I think he showed some flashes last year. And then it's the same thing with kind of like their small forward, like Jabari Walker is a good young player. Chris Murray is a guy for them. Jeremy Grant, Tamani Kamara, Duop DeAndre Ayton. I think say what you want to say about Ayton. He's not like a bad basketball player, right? At the very least. So long way of saying they have a lot of guys who need to play, and I don't think it's a guarantee that like whoever they pick will start again with a lot of these teams in this lottery, especially. So I think that given who's on the board still, I think Matas Buzelis makes a lot of sense for them. They were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the NBA last year. They might have been the worst. Like legitimately, they were a bad 3-point shooting team, and Matas is a guy that theoretically could provide shooting. I don't look at his G League Ignite shooting stats and am like, yeah, I think he's far away from a shooter. I don't see it that way. I mean, the G League Ignite is just a weird basketball environment for anybody. And in high school, in his senior year, he was a really good shooter. And I think he's gonna figure it out. I think he's gonna figure it out there. He's that kind of like young forward, like a really young forward that they could use. If they ever wanted to trade Jeremy Grant, you have Matas behind him who could kind of, move up in the rotation. So I think that is the guy that they should pick at 7. Moving on, we've got the Spurs again at 8. So they drafted Stephon Castle. I don't think that this should, dissuade them from taking another guard. Again, I don't think Stephon Castle is like a point guard right away. I think he's more of a 2, more of a 3 in some lineups. But again, like I don't think that should dissuade the Spurs from taking another guard. I'm looking at Rob Dillingham, and I'm thinking that is a guy that could also address some other needs of theirs as just like a spacer. And it's not that he's just that. Like he can do more than that. He can get downhill a little bit. He can just kind of get buckets from everywhere. That's kind of his just style of play. So the Spurs could certainly use that again. I think just knowing what their roster is right now, like it's not like their point guard position is that great. Like Devontae Graham, Trey Jones, Malachi Branham, those aren't like, Malachi Branham and Trey Jones especially aren't bad players. It's just that it's not like you're not drafting a guard because you want to ensure that they will play. So I don't know. I'm looking at the guards. I'm looking at some of these wings too. Dalton Connect, if you really want to lean into the spacing. Cody Williams, if you want some more upside. Devin Carter, that's another guard. A little bit. He's similar to Castle in some ways, but that's like another guard if you want to go double guard. I really do think though that Nikola Topic with his upside, I think I'd go with him. Like, yes, the injuries are worrisome, and it's never a good sign for young prospects to have like rich injury history, especially with like the legs in the same spots over and over again. But the upside is clearly there for them, and that's another guy like unlike Castle, who I think kind of operates in more of that secondary playmaker role. Like Topic, if he hits, is the lead playmaker, and he has some shooting upside, even though he's not there yet. Is a good free throw shooter, has a decent form. If they mind waiting some months into the season, or even like, his whole rookie season, depending on how bad his injuries are, I like if they're fine with waiting for that, go take Topic at 8 because the upside is still really there. I don't like how in mocks I keep on seeing him fall and fall and fall to like, late teens. Like he should be a lottery pick. He should be top 10 for sure. I think the Spurs getting him, like They're drafting 2 guards, but they're different enough guards that I like it. I like it. And if they do want like more shooting and all that, they can get that via trade, free agency. KCP is a free agent; they can get him. Um, they do have some options there for sure. So next up, we have the Memphis Grizzlies. A lot of people want them to take a big, which I think is which is understandable. I don't think the kind of big that they want is there right here at 9 if Klingon is off the board. I've heard some things about Memphis maybe wanting to go down to or shoot for or reach for Kel'el Ware. I don't think he'd really. I don't know. I just don't think that is the kind of center that they want. Like if they want a center, go get Nick Claxton, go pay Hartenstein, like get one of those guys. Trade up for Klingon if you really want a center in this draft. But I don't think you should reach for Kel'el Ware for the sake of just wanting a big from this draft. So we can kind of look at their depth chart a little bit and kind of try to point out some positions of weakness maybe. I do think that 2-3 spot is not like the most secure right now. Like for point guards, Morant, Smart are kind of their guys. Like Smart will probably come off the bench if he's on the team next year. They have Desmond Bane at 2. Vince Williams is kind of a guard who can play either. At the 3, I think GG Jackson is more of a 3. At the 4, they still have Clark, Aldama, Jaren, whose real position is a 4. And then at the 5, obviously, I think that's the big conversation that I just kind of already addressed. I kind of do like the idea of going a 3 just because GG Jackson is the only one right now. And like, do you want to make him the starter? I don't know. Like, the starting small forward for them next season. And not to say that like who I think they should take, which is Cody Williams, will start either. But GG Jackson is also really young. I don't know. I think I'm kind of overthinking it a little bit and kind of going off a bit. This is a hard team to draft for also because they're going to be good. Like this is the best team that's drafted so far when they're healthy. They just weren't healthy last year, hence why they're even drafting at 9 in the first place. I'm feeling like Cody Williams. I think they could use another young wing. I don't think you can ever have too many wings, in my opinion. He's got upside. He plays tough. Shooting upside. I think they're going to be a good team next year no matter what. So I don't think they really need to draft guys that can help them because I think they're going to have the help already. Draft an upside pick as this team gets more expensive with, the extensions you're going to have to hand out. It's going to be valuable having those cheap rookie contracts who can hit for them. And I think that's the kind of guy that can. So I like that for Memphis. Utah at 10. Utah, they certainly have some options. I don't think I like their guard rotation as it is, as far as like lead guards. Keontae George and Colin Sexton can be like lead guards who can run, you start with the ball in their hands and they can run the show. I do think that they could use more of an off guard. I'm looking at like a guy like Rob Dillingham. I'm looking at Devin Carter as 2 guys that could be off guards. Jared McCain, I think that this is a bit high for McCain. I wouldn't go McCain if I'm the Jazz. I do think what I like for them is Devin Carter. Let's go back down to their depth chart right here. Keontae George, Colin Sexton as your main point guards. Chris Dunn, I think, is going to get moved to a team that needs his skills more than the Jazz do right now. Markkanen is that 4-3. They could use another wing. They do have Taylor Hendricks right there. They have John Collins. I wouldn't go. I mean, I don't know. I think they could do a lot of things here. Walker Kessler, he was put in a trade rumor the other day. I saw on Twitter. I'm a bit surprised by that, and I don't really believe that, at least for this summer. I think he'll be on the team, and I think he will start at center. I think I'm going to go Devin Carter. He is a guy that has kind of risen lately in a lot of mocks. It's kind of the expectation that he goes lottery 10. I think is perfectly within his kind of realm as a player and as a prospect. And I think that Utah, a team that could use another off guard, a guy that can come in there and just be good for them. He has upside, but he can also help win. He's tough. He's a good team player. I think Devin Carter is where I'd go if I was Danny Ainge. So now at number 11, the Chicago Bulls are on the clock. I think that this is a Kel'el Ware team right here. Vucevic and Drummond are the centers on the roster right now. Vucevic had a bad year on both ends. I think that if you can find a replacement for him sooner rather than later, you should, because I just think that Vucevic, his time is running out in Chicago. Drummond is a free agent this year. I think, right? He's a free agent. I think he is going to pick up, some offers from other teams, right? Like the Nuggets could really use him. The Thunder could really use him. A lot of teams could use Drummond. I think they need a big. Kel'el Ware is a good big for them. He's got a lot of upside. He showed a lot of improvement from his first to second year of college. There are some motor concerns, but I think you draft this guy anyway. A lot of times when players are kind of given the motor concern label, like a lot of the times it's kind of just things that are kind of heard once and then kind of ran with. Like Gigi Jackson was another guy who had motor concerns. Like Anthony Edwards, another guy who's had motor concerns. I just don't think that motor concerns are something that you should really like look that far into unless you've like seen them firsthand in front of you. To my knowledge, I just think that Kel'el Ware is going to be fine. Him at 11 for the Bulls is what I would go with at 11. 12, the Thunder. So again, this is a team that they've been rumored to get a ton of bigs. Maybe they can look for a big in the draft. I don't think at 12, if they stay where they are, which I think they will, I don't think that like there are a ton of great big options really here. Missy, Edey, I think it's too high for them. These aren't really like DaRon Holmes. We'll talk about him. I don't think that this is the pick exactly either. Filipowski, no. With the Caruso trade, they also don't really need guards like McCain, Bub, Rob. Like, still don't think they need guards. I actually like the idea of going to Jean Salon for them. And that's because they obviously need some size at that kind of 4, that 3-4. Readjust that light. They need some size at that kind of 3, that 3-4 spot, right? They could use some shooting. Dejan Salon is an upside pick. I think he's a few years away from really making an impact. But again, they're going to be good already. Take the upside pick who can kind of incubate in the back while the rest of the team is succeeding in the moment, and you can kind of bring him up in that culture. He feels like a Sam Presti pick. This team is going to get expensive. Having a guy like this who's making a rookie money, who by the time his second contract is probably ready, like he's not going to demand a ton of money. You could probably retain him for a while. So Dejan Salon, I like this pick for them. Again, if they have cap space to go get like a big if they want that. They have cap space to kind of go get like a Markkanen or someone like that. Like they can kind of eat up that returning value in that kind of trade. So Tajon Salon, I like that for them a lot. Next we have Sacramento. I'm going DaRon Holmes. I don't need to think about that one too much. I just think with the guys who are on the board, like, you know, they could use a guy who has some defensive upside and some shooting and plays that four. Like, let's go back a pick just so we can kind of look at their depth a little bit. Harrison Barnes is probably going to get traded. Domantas Sabonis is a 5. I mean, maybe we'll see. He's more of a 5. They don't really have another 4. Trey Lyles is fine. Chris Duarte, not like Vesenkov. He's probably going to get moved. He asked to be moved. Herder is probably going to be gone. Like, they could go guard. They did bring back Malik Monk. So like the Dillingham, McCain fits don't make a ton of sense anymore because of that. So I just think that DaRon Holmes, like, this is a guy that could slot in and start for them. Maybe not right away because this is a bit of a reach. Like, I'll admit that, but he's a guy that could eventually start. I think in that starting lineup and is I think he fills a little bit of a spot of need for them. So I'm gonna kind of go DaRon Holmes at 13 for the Kings. And then now next up we have the Portland Trailblazers. So at this point they already drafted Matas, who's kind of their wing. I'm looking at who's on the board still, and I see that Rob Dillingham is still on the board, and I think you have to take him. Him sliding in this mock draft, I don't think is a fair representation of how I view Rob. I'm pretty high on Rob. It's just that I don't think it if you really sift through all the picks before Rob, I don't think it makes a ton of sense for a lot of those teams to pick him. I just think sometimes players fall, and it's not because they're bad. It's just because that's how the board breaks. So Rob Dillingham at 14, the Blazers have a lot of guards, but take this kind of talent. They're still early on in their rebuild. They traded Dame just last year. They still need to acquire talent, even if it's at positions that are seemingly already kind of accounted for. So Rob Dillingham, again, if Brogdon and Simons are gone, which it's looking like a possibility, like a real possibility that they are gone, there's more room for this guy. I like Dillingham. Dillingham should not fall out of the lottery. Also, 14, I don't think he should go past 14. So now up next, we have the Miami Heat. This is also a difficult team to draft for because we know what they're capable of. Jimmy Butler's future, on the team, is very kind of uncertain right now. It's not really like them to bottom out, to swing for a crazy upside. They're gonna be wanting to win every single year. It makes this decision a bit tough. I don't I've seen some things about Zach Edey to the Heat. I don't love that. I don't think they should take a big. I think they should be looking to take a guard, like another creator. Terry Rozier he wasn't as good as I think people hoped he would be, as I hoped he would be for that team. I think they should try to go for a guard. I think that Jared McCain is a name I really like at 15 for the Heat. People kind of question whether he could fit that culture over in Miami. And from everything I've seen, it's like McCain is a hard worker. He's a guy that plays tough. He's a natural shooter. I think he's a Heat pick. He could definitely be a Heat pick. I don't think Collier is really their guy. Dalton, they have a lot of shooters. They have Hero. They have Duncan Robinson. Jaime. They already have a wing. Jovic is probably going to play more next year. They don't need that position, to me. I'd go Jared McCain. He could be a guy that can run your point, can also play off the ball. He can do a lot of different things. McCain is my pick at 15. Next up, Philly. So now here for Philly is where I think that Dalton Knecht will go. Again, I'm not necessarily low on Knecht. Like, people know what he is. He's going to be a scorer. He's going to be able to shoot. He's going to be able to impact the game on offense. He can pass a little bit too. Like, that's kind of his thing. Defense, he's still very, very far away from being even neutral on that end, frankly. Like, his defense is bad. But with Philly, I really do think that they could use his kind of scoring and kind of just presence at the wing. Like, you look at this team, Tobias Harris, free agent, Buddy Hield, free agent, Rocco, free agent, Nicholas Batum, free agent. Like, they aren't going to have any wings next year. And Kelly Oubre, like, it's not looking that good right now for kind of their wings and their shooting. And, like, I think Knecht is the move. Tristan da Silva is a guy I could also see. He'd kind of play more of that, like, Tobias Harris kind of role. But Dalton Knecht, 16, I like that fit for him a lot. Lakers, you got at 17. This is tough. This is tough to kind of to draft for also, because you don't really know what, like, there's some uncertainty kind of around LeBron. D'Angelo Russell, he has a player option. He's probably going to turn that down. He could leave. He could go somewhere else. They could use like another lead guy. You've got to start planning for like the post LeBron years eventually. JJ Redick, what does he want to do? Does he want to kind of develop this pick? Or does, for his first year, does he kind of just want to focus in more on this kind of the team at hand and maybe going for a guy like Da Silva? I don't know. It's interesting. If I were the Lakers, I would really be looking forward a little bit to what life looks like post LeBron. LeBron is, like, even in kind of the immediate, like, in the immediate little term, like, he is a player option. Like, it's not a 100% chance that LeBron will be on the Lakers next season. And obviously, if he does leave, it's like nobody you're drafting is going to occupy what that kind of space is. But looking forward to when LeBron is like going to be off the team and you kind of enter this new era, I think Isaiah Collier taking that kind of upside as a lead guard, which, like, they don't really have, like, they don't have like a lead guard. Like, D'Lo is probably going to be gone. Austin Reeves isn't that. Dinwiddie is Dinwiddie. I like the idea of like going guard. So Isaiah Collier, keep him in house. You like, California has ties to LeBron and Bronny, which I think they'll end up taking at 55. Take Collier. I just think that is a good fit for both sides. I don't want Collier to slide too far because I do think that he's still like a really good player. He just had kind of an unfortunate year at USC. I think at this point we can kind of move a little bit faster with these picks. I think at 18 with the Magic, I'm going with Bub Carrington. They need creation. They need shooting. Bub does that. I think they have a good defensive infrastructure as is. They're an up-and-coming team. Malik Monk, the kind of guy that people really wanted for them, is, he's off the market. You think back to that Cavs playoff series where it's like they need creation. They need creation. They need playmaking. They need shooting. They need guys who can do both of that. I'm high in Bub. I think Bub can really excel in the areas that the Magic will need him to do. He's not going to start right away, most likely, but like, imagine him and Suggs and Franz and Paulo, like that top four with Wendell at the 5 or whoever they want to put at the 5. Like, that's a nasty team. Like, take Bub at 18. He could go before he could go before here. Like it wouldn't shock me. He's a guy who's really like climbed and climbed with these mocks over the last few weeks. I think Bub at 18 is a dream fit, and I don't love a lot of these other guys for them. Walters Jacoby Walter, he would help with their shooting, but not really their creation or like their playmaking issues, which they do still have. So I'm going Bub Carrington at 18. Next, we have the Toronto Raptors. Let's scroll down. They're still like, they're rebuilding. They're still rebuilding. They just paid Scotty Barnes a big contract today. They have a lot of guards kind of here already. Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Bruce Brown, Grady Dick, Ochai. Like they have a lot of kind of occupied space at the guard positions, and I think you want to go more wing for them. Even like Scotty is more of a wing for sure. He's kind of that 3. Can play 4 too. I think you grab maybe another one of those guys, or like, since I guess there isn't a great one on the board, I was also thinking you go big. You go like a younger, more athletic big. Kelly Olynyk is not athletic or young. Pirtle is solid, and he'll be the starter next year, most likely. But I like the idea of going Missy for them. Freshman, he's young, he's raw, he's kind of like, he's a big who protects the rim with his athleticism, but is also switchy. Like he kind of seems like a Masai Ujiri type pick. So Missy to the Raptors, that's something I've mocked before, and I like that. I think that's what I'd still continue to go with. And now next up we have the Cavs at 20, and they just hired a new coach, Kenny Atkinson. He was hired this morning. I think that kind of indicated to me that Donovan Mitchell will be signing an extension. Darius Garland is still kind of up in the air. Jarrett, I think, will be on this team if they brought in Kenny Atkinson. Mobley is obviously not going anywhere. I think they could use some more depth at the wing, like we've been saying the last 3 years. They could use some more depth at the wing. Tristan da Silva, he's still there. Lakers passed on him. Heat passed on him. Sixers passed on him. I think you take him. I think he could slot in pretty well. I think of him as like the Jaime Jaquez of last year, or no, he's the Jaime Jaquez of this year. But like, think of him like how Jaime Jaquez was there for the Heat last year, in kind of that, right outside the lottery, 4-year guy, came in, made a big impact. I think he could do the same thing with the Cavs. Next up, we have the New Orleans Pelicans. This is a team that will definitely be involved in trades this summer. Like, they are not going to run this team back. One of the downsides to having the draft so far ahead of free agency is that you don't really know who's going to be on the team. Like, maybe they make a draft night trade that can make this decision easier for them, but man, it's tough. Like, there isn't really a pure point that I would be comfortable taking at 21 on the board. Every team could use more shooting. Jacoby Walter is here at 21. Like, he's fallen a lot. Filipowski is someone who I am close to taking right now. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I think I'm not like, like, I don't think he should go this high necessarily. Like, I'm not that high on Filipowski, but like, based on their team needs, the Pelicans, Filipowski is a guy I do like for them. And like Walter, he's too similar to the kind of the Herb Jones, Hawkins, Trey Murphy type. Like, I think I want to go for like that 4 or 5, and Filipowski to me is the right pick. Like, I just think about a guy like who you can play next to Zion, and maybe his spacing in the shooting that he kind of had at Duke isn't going to be in the NBA right away. But I think that's kind of the mold of big that you want to pair next to Zion. So I'm going Filipowski at 21. 22, Phoenix Suns. Man, they need everything, except like shooting guard, shooting guard who can score. Like they need defense, they need size, they need bigs, they need point guards. They need a lot of help right now. I hate to do this to the Suns, but I'm going Zach Edey. I think that they should look for something over Nurkic, like kind of bad. Nurkic is not good. He's just not. This feels like this. I mean, this is a gamble. Like whichever team is drafting Edey is taking a gamble, but the Suns, like, what do they have to lose at this point? Like their backs are already against the wall. I just think that this is a player, like, they could really swing on, like, them swinging on this draft pick, and if it hits, like, they could save themselves out of kind of whatever hell they've kind of gotten themselves into. Zach Edey is an upside pick. Nurkic, I think, like, if you can get an upgrade over Nurkic, or you can just get a guy where, like, you don't have to play Nurkic all the time, you do it. Zach Edey at 22, I like it. Milwaukee, I think the picks kind of become simpler at this point. Like Jacoby Walter is the guy shooting. He's young, upside, just has more pop than like kind of whatever they have right now. They're probably going to lose Malik Beasley. Pat Connaughton, I know they want to trade. I think, Jacoby Walter, you put him in with Dame, Middleton, Giannis, whoever the hell they have on that team still, like, I think that's a good, like, if he's there at 23, that would be considered a fall. So, Milwaukee, they need to hit on these picks. Go with someone who kind of fall, who's more sure of a prospect than maybe some of these other guys are. Next up, we have the Knicks. They are picking at 24 and 25. So it doesn't really matter who we pick first, but I think one Tibbs guy is like Ryan Dunn. Ryan Dunn is the best defender in this draft right now. He is very far away on offense, but, like, that's a Tibbs kind of player to me. This Knicks team, like, they have offense already. I think Dunn reminds me a bit of Josh Hart. Like, I don't know. I don't have a great reasoning for this pick other than it just kind of feels right to me. I'd go Ryan Dunn, and I would also go Jalen Tyson. Jalen Tyson, they could use kind of more. They could use like a backup point, and I don't know how much of a point Jalen Tyson is, but I still think he can do a lot of those things. Just kind of shore up some of that guard rotation a little bit. The Knicks, they have been kind of, things are a little bit shaky for them right now. Like Hartenstein and OG, like, they don't have under contract for next year, which is a bit concerning. But, like, assuming they can retain one of those guys, and that Randall will be back and Mitchell Robinson will be back, like, 25, Jalen Tyson, let's just do it. So the Wizards are next. They've drafted Klingon. I think you have to go with a point guard here. I'm looking at who's available, and I don't love many of these guys at all. Like Kolek, like, I think they're still so, like, early on into the rebuild where, to that, like, to me, like, I think going for more upside than Kolek would make more sense. But it's not like many of these guys at the point are also doing that for you. Jay Mitchell is someone I'm looking at. KJ Simpson is someone who they'd really be reaching for, but, is there. They don't need wings. I don't think they really need much of that. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going Jay Mitchell. I've just become a big fan of Jay Mitchell, and I'm picking him right before the Timberwolves, which I think the Timberwolves could really use a guy like that. But yeah, like, they need a point guard. I think that's the best point guard remaining at this point. Again, I'm not high on Kolek really at all. I think that he should, like, he could go first round, sure, but I don't think he should go as high as a lot of people think. he should go. Timberwolves at 27. I think I like the Johnny Furphy pick for them. I'm a Timberwolves fan. I think most people watching this would probably already know that, but I'm a Timberwolves. I think they could use more shooting. Obviously, the point guards at this spot aren't that great. If you want like another backup point guard, let's say you lose McLaughlin, you lose Monte. If you want a backup point guard, go get someone at the vet minimum, or or trade up to get a point guard. Like hoping a point guard is there at 27 is not really that, like, it's just unlikely. You could also use 37 on a point guard, but 27, like at this point, Johnny Furphy is still there. Take Johnny Furphy. He's a young guy. They're going to need some young players to really start contributing pretty soon, because of, they're going to be a second apron team. So Johnny Furphy, I like. Denver, I'm going to go Kevin McCullar. Kevin McCullar was awesome in college basketball before he got hurt. They're another team that, like, they need young players to kind of step up and contribute. And usually they've gone for more like prospect, or not prospect, but like project type players. Kevin McCullar is a guy that I think can contribute for them next year, especially if they lose KCP or if they, what they want to do with MPJ. Like Kevin McCullar is what I would go with if I'm Calvin Booth. Back to Utah. We already drafted Devin Carter for them. I think that Baylor Shireman still being here, this is a guy I think should go a lot higher than the Fanspo consensus. I think the Wolves could take Shireman. Like that's a pick that I would like for them. But here at 29 for Utah, I would take Shireman. And then finally at 30, the Celtics, like, they don't really have any position of need. I think if we do just want to pick somebody, like Tyler Smith is a Brad Stevens type guy. So I think he makes just kind of the most sense there. Nobody they draft is going to play right away anyway. They'll probably trade that pick. But look at that. How long have we been going? 52 minutes. So we're all done. Let's just kind of go over the picks again. We got Sarr, Klingon, Shepard, Castle, Risache, Holland, Buzelis, Topic, Williams, Carter, Ware, Salon, Holmes, Dillingham, McCain, Connect, Collier, Carrington, Misi, De Silva, Filipowski, Edey, Walter, Dunn, Tyson, Mitchell, Furphy, McCullar, Shireman, Smith. So I like this. I like this first round. Again, this is what I would go with at each spot. Like this isn't what I think is going to happen, but I think this is where I'm going to be at. Again, by the time this video goes up, the draft will be tomorrow, so there's not a lot of time to change things. It's kind of looking like what we get is just kind of, that's it. Again, trades we made. We didn't make any trades in this video, but I think we can just kind of cut it off there. Thank you for watching. I'll probably make more random videos whenever I feel like it. So thank you. Listen to my other podcast, Soul Hoops, that I do with the guys. Yeah, have a good one.